All right, welcome back to the channel. Sailboat ads, the good, the bad, the ugly. I apologize, I have not been as consistent with getting videos out as I should be. My last video was about a boat I bought, and I've decided I'm going to resell it, and because it's cursed. I made a mistake, and I'm not going to keep it. So if anybody's looking for a pretty nice 1978 O'Day 25 centerboard and wants to come to Colorado, I'll make you a great deal on it. I've put a ton of work in the last month and a half. Anyhow, today we're going to do something completely different. Two things that I've really wanted to do was to go to other parts of the country. So we're going to go to Fort Lauderdale today. And the other thing that I wanted to do is catamarans. And there's so many of them on the market. And it feels like the market it was really, really smoking hot 2, 3, 4 years ago. And the prices were nuts. And now it feels like a lot of them have come down and it's not quite so crazy. So I've picked a couple that are on the low end. And then maybe next week I'll do some really big ones, expensive, $2 million plus kind of thing. But you can find there's some good buys out there right now for around 300K, which for a cruising cat is pretty good. So let's get to it. My first is going to be this 2019 Fountaine Pajot Lucia 40. That's a 38 footer. Why do they call it a Lucia 40 if it's a 38 footer? That just seems silly. Um, FP, one of the big high volume builders. I think they probably do a decent job. It's not the best boat on the market. Comes with a couple of Volvo 30s, so your total power is 60. And then here's just a quick overview: fully imported, duty paid, exciting new 40-foot catamaran sailboat. Pretty sure it's still in their lineup today. I think they've made some changes in the last 7 years, but exclusively designed to deliver a simply superb experience at sea and while moored. Remarkable volumes, light-filled living spaces allow you to comfortably share the experiences and create lifelong memories. Wow, that sounds like Chat GTP or whatever it is, AI. True revolutionary class, no other catamaran sailboat oversized as fabulous living space of the Lucia 40. Luminous salon or saloon, decadent lounge area in the bow. It spans more than 3 meters squared. She's also only 40-foot cat that includes 2 bathrooms and also boasts the largest owner suite available in her class. So this is a bit confusing because this looks like it's an ex-charter cat, 4 cabins, 2 heads. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, so we're going to move on. Here's a lot of the stuff that is included. It does have a fresh water maker at 60 liters per hour. Divide by 4 to get gallons, so that's about 15 gallons an hour. Here's your Volvos, 2,700, 2,800 engine hours, sail drives. Diesels, your weight is almost 20,000 pounds. That's quite a bit more than the other one we're going to look at. But virtually the same specs. We're also going to look at a Seawind, one of my favorites. So guest cabins 4, guest heads 2. I don't know how you get an owner's if you have 4 cabins, but let's look at the photos. And we're going to slideshow them. Oh, that's a good blurry picture. Looks like a very weather-worn tender. Oh no. These are terrible. Yeah, so here's your layout. This is definitely a charter layout. This is not an owner's boat. And these would be doubles only for very squishy, friendly adults or kids. These are decently sized, probably just queens, so 60 inches across. That would be very cozy for 2 full-size adults. There we go. Definitely love the hatches facing forward. I don't like the sloped glass. I know that they do that because it looks cool. But basically, if you have overhead sun, it's pouring in through there and it's heating your cabin up. Both of these boats, interestingly, are either leather or vinyl. It's probably leather. which is a terrible idea on a boat. Particularly this boat's in the Bahamas. I'm pretty sure. No, the other one is. But it's in Fort Lauderdale, in you know, hot, sticky, humid. You don't want to sit on this stuff when you're hot and you're in shorts, or yeah, maybe without shirts on and that kind of thing. Nicely staged. I love this. Um, Opening hatch there, and you can see it feels like plenty of space up here, but I think as you get down toward the foot of the bed, you're going to get pretty cozy with your partner. Um, so these have always had kind of an odd layout, I thought, with the hob or cooker separate from the oven, and the oven's kind of in this little uh, cabinet over here instead of being below. And I think that's because as you go down the stairs here, you turn left. This is actually storage for the passageway down there. That is a very odd looking instrument cluster. We already saw that. We saw those. Here's your full size berths at the stern. So if you're stern to like you would in the Med, you're right against the wharf or the jetty. And if you're in the tropics and you're on anchor, getting air to the back of this thing can be tricky. So those are some of the cons of having big berths in the fat part of the hulls. But it allows you to get a nice big berth, and actually they could have made this quite a bit wider even more if you wanted to do a queen size or king size bed rather. So one of the things you're going to give up in a 38-foot boat is there's just not a massive amount of space in the salon. Here's your refrigeration. It looks like you have 2 drawer fridge freezers and then a standard fridge over. There's the other four-peak. I think this is, I've forgotten what they call this finish. It's quite nice. I think the quality of finish on a boat like this is probably not the best, as you might imagine, being a production boat. This is the big berth on the other side. Looks like it has plenty of light, although you get funky moldings because it's right underneath the cockpit and at the aft end of the hulls. That is a useless picture. So little tiny sink. Looks like you do have a stand-up shower space. This does not look like a nice finish work there for sure. That's in the heads, obviously. That's much nicer. And the hardware looks pretty decent. We're getting lots of pictures of the berths, which not all that interested in. So here's your cockpit table. Looks like decent seating for 4 or 5. That looks like it might be a little cockpit refrigerator, which would be kind of cool. Don't love the finish on this. My guess is that it got beat up and they just painted it, because that doesn't look good. But reasonably sized cockpit. You've got a little lounger space here. You've got the aft end bench, and I like this design because if you put a cushion here, you can lay down on it. Interesting choice of pictures there. And we saw nothing on deck, which is interesting. We didn't see the the steering station, and you would have a single steering station right here, whereas the Seawind has dual steering stations. So let's move on. That seems like pretty decent value for 290 grand. So this is a Seawind 1160, also 38 feet. Actually, the dimensions of this boat are almost identical to the other one, although it looks completely different. Caroline Laviolette, she used to do a lot of videos, and I really liked her. She was very sort of straightforward and kind of told it like it was. Lots and lots and lots of detail on this boat, which I obviously am not going to go all the way through. It is a thoughtfully upgraded. This is a much older boat. This is an 05 versus the FP we just saw, which is a 19. So 14 years difference. But I would argue that this, even at You know, you're at 359 versus 289. Um, there's a lot on this boat to like. So thoughtfully upgraded, 1160 Deluxe, 3 cabin, 2 head, owner's version. Now this truly does have what I would consider an owner's cabin. Um, highly capable, energy independent cruising platform, air draft of 60, uh, practical use of space. I'm not going to go through all that stuff, but here's some of the highlights. So 1600 watts of solar, 900 amp hours of lithium, complete Victron power system. It does have a water maker, has an air conditioner, and all the rest of this stuff is all newer. So standing rigging was replaced in 24-25. That is a substantial investment. I'm not real sure what it would cost on a 38-foot cat, but I'm going to guess it's 20,000 plus. Running rigging upgraded to Dyneema, auto prop self-pitching propellers, shaft line cutters, Raymarine, and some new radar, and the hull windows rebedded, custom aqua traction deck. So this is cool stuff. I like it. I like the way it looks. It looks like it would be nice underfoot. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go through. There are a couple of curious things here. So forward windows are 10 millimeter toughened glass. I don't know what toughened glass is. I know what laminate glass is. That's like what you have in your windshield, which is 2 pieces of glass with a piece of plastic in between. And I know what tempered glass is, which is what is required by code in any kind of door or any glass that's closer than 18 inches to the floor. So when it breaks in little pieces. It doesn't break into knife edges that will cut you and hurt you. But I've never heard of toughened glass. So the side windows are 6 millimeter toughened glass, simulated teak and holly floor. This has these cool trifold doors. I'll explain what that is in a second. This says you have 2 queen size beds, and then you've got 1 double, and it goes through the electrical stuff in a little bit more detail. Got a small portable generator. I don't think the Fountaine Pajot had any generator at all. Part of the problem with 38 footers is you kind of start running out of space for things like that. Galley, double bowl, stainless steel sink. Actually, let's just look at the pics, because now these do have 5,000 hours, which is quite a lot, but I like Yanmars better than the Volvos. Not that I've lived with either one of them, to be honest, but from the many reviews and things that I've read, the Yanmars are easier to service. They have a wider dealer network. Volvos have some of the maintenance parts are not as easy to get to, that kind of thing. So let's go look at photos. So you can see the huge solar array. I think that's really cool. Those are obviously 4x400 watt solar panels, and they're behind the boom, so you will get shading if the sun is forward of the mast, but otherwise it's, so many of these solar systems are on the cabin tops, and you can see there'd be a big shade issue right there. So my guess is that this boat would sail considerably better than the FP, primarily because it's quite a bit lighter. 14,000 pounds versus almost 20,000. And I think part of that is there's not quite as much interior volume, but in some ways I believe it's better laid out. So you see the sea deck, or whatever you call this, the artificial teak. It does have a self-tacking jib, which is cool. This is a boat that my family and I we chartered the 1000 XL, which is basically a couple feet shorter and a little bit older than this boat, but very similar in design and layout and some of the same features, and loved it for 4 people for a week. Very small tramps. The Fountaine Pajot has much bigger trampolines. Here's the tri-door, the triple door. So these basically fold in and then they pull up to the ceiling. It goes completely out of the way. It doesn't slide to the side like you do have on others. And then don't know on this boat, but on their other boats, these windows either crank up and down or they can be removed completely. So it's a way that if you're standing here, you can look through the cabin and get good visibility, or you're gonna sit over here on the next to these winches and see down the side deck. Their tender looks like it's a solid rather than a rib, and in much better condition. One of the things I don't like about these boats and didn't like on the charter boat that we had was that they put the grill right in the middle. So if you want to lay down here, you can't unless you're 8 years old or younger. Why don't you just put it over here, which they started doing in later generations? This is a cool place to sit, by the way, when you're underway. You're still protected, but you're not fully under the hardtop, so you're getting a good breeze. You can see very nice maintenance when you look at things like, is this stainless nice and bright and shiny? Someone's taking care of this, which is a good indicator that you have an owner who has pride of ownership. There's your Starlink. Typically on these boats, they have the controls on one side, or all the controls on one side, not the other. So here's obviously your engine controls, your Yanmar readouts, pretty old beat up looking compass, and some repeaters there. So here's that triple door again. And as we go through this, you're going to see that I think this is definitely an exceptionally well taken care of boat. Here's leather or vinyl again. I don't want to sit on that in my shorts. I'm not sure what the point of the table is. I like the wood table, but this thing in the middle, is that a crossword puzzle? And here's, to me, is the star of these boats. At 38 feet, you have a galley that is absolutely fantastic. So not only do you have 2 freezer compartments, but this is a fridge. We'll see that better in a second. Obviously, these close. This is all then workspace. This is all workspace. This looks like corian to me, which is a great material for a boat. It is fairly lightweight. It's repairable. It's kind of moderately heat resistant. Yeah, here's your fridge. So just lots and lots of cold storage for a 38 footer. Here's your cooker, 2 burner with an oven, kind of a more traditional layout. Dual sink. I'm not a dual sink fan. I'd much prefer to have one big sink, but whatever. This is your kind of secondary head, obviously not with a enclosed shower. This is berth. They're calling this a queen. I'll bet if you put a tape on this, it's not 60 inches wide. On the 1000 XL we were on, there was no way 2 adults could sleep in this bed. They didn't, and it was a fore and aft bed, not a thwartships. And pretty nice fit and finish for a production boat from Australia. This is the owner's hole. So that's the sleeping cabin. You've got a nav station with some electronics and readouts and whatnot. Here's your stairs up. And this is actually open above, so you've got kind of a nice communication when you're there. Yeah, and look at this bed. This truly looks like a great place to spend a night. It's a little squishy this way, but you've got easy access from both sides. It does look like a full-size queen. And then this is the master, or I guess it's called primary cabin, with the head with a separate shower and lots of room in here. There's your electronics again. They have a nice TV on readout. And here are your engines, clearly very, very nicely maintained for being, what was this, an 05? So it's 21 years old. There is your windlass. I like this attention to detail. So this owner obviously is a Ryobi person, which I am. All my tools are Ryobi. And figured out a clever way to mount them so that they wouldn't just sit in a bin. This is actually, that's the 3rd cabin, which looks like it's full of maybe sailbags and other stuff. And here's your water maker. There's your electronics. And there is your lithium bank. And that's the layout. Yeah, so where those tools are is up here. That's actually not the third cabin. It could be. There's your third cabin. This is definitely not a double. Again, 2 kids could sleep in there. And this, I don't think, is to scale. So, couple of very interesting boats. You know, if you were in the market for something in that range, about 40 feet, 2 very interesting, pretty big spread in price. This one to me has been better kept, is a more interesting design, certainly will sail better. But you are talking about $359 versus $289. So I think that's it for today. We'll come back to the camera. Hope you enjoyed our little tour of a couple of cool, relatively inexpensive cruising cats. And I will see you next week.